Chap Petersen, Rapid Fire with Chap. Senator Petersen, great to have you.
John, thank you for having me. Great to be on.
E.W. Jackson got kicked out of the Capitol because in his promotional material, he put heaven, stuff that there was going to be a dialogue with heaven. And the staffers at the Capitol said, well, even though on the wall of the auditorium has "In God We Trust," can't say heaven, so they kicked him out. That doesn't seem right to me.
He was, what was he at the Capitol for? Was this like a rally or something?
Yeah, he's having a rally. He got approval to use the auditorium, the Capitol auditorium area. Bob Goodlett got him in, but then unfortunately he got kicked out. So he had to take it to a hotel.
I can't explain Washington, D.C., so he's more than welcome to come down to the state capitol. He can have a rally in my office. I don't care.
See, now that's why we love having you on, Chap.
Yeah.
Big heart. Right? So he could come. So, EW, if you're out there, you can come to the Richmond Capitol and go right in Chap's office and say heaven, and that's fine with him, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, Chap, let's go to the Oscars. I was one of the lucky ones. Now, ask me why.
Why are you lucky, John?
Okay, because the Fräulein, my wife and I, it was her idea, actually. She said, hey, I'm going to watch the Oscars Monday. I think this film is going to win the Birdman, even though only 9 people had seen it in America. We saw it on Saturday night, and it won. Now, I saw it. I thought it was 2.5 stars. I thought it was okay. Didn't see how it could win. How did that thing win? Do you have any idea?
You know, I didn't. I don't watch the Oscars. I am just completely on a different wavelength than Hollywood. I really liked Unbroken. I saw that over Christmas, and I thought it was a fabulous movie. And it seemed like, Angelina Jolie seems like a Hollywood type, and I thought she would be winning awards for that, but apparently she didn't win any, so what do I know? I haven't seen American Sniper yet. I know everyone's raving about it. When I get out of here, I want to go with my wife Sharon and see that. Other than that, I just don't feel like I saw it. I did see Guardians of the Galaxy with my kids, John.
That was great.
Good. Probably not a cinematic tour de force that would get a Best Picture award, but I thought it was pretty amusing. That's pretty much.
I love Guardians.
What was the other one? The one with the one where the husband and wife were trying to kill each other.
Oh, that was Ben
Affleck.
Gone Girl.
Yeah,
I thought
that was good.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
Yeah,
I thought Gone Girl was good, but Guardians of the Galaxy. Now I saw that with my little one and the Fräulein twice.
Yeah,
and,
my kids were all into that.
I just thought I love the what was it, the squirrel or the raccoon?
Yeah, no, it was funny. It was cute. I went to see it at a drive-in, and it was exactly what the doctor ordered.
They still have drive-ins?
You know what? They do in Marion, Virginia. We were down at Hungry Mother State Park on our annual family vacation. They have a drive-in, and some movies, I remember going to see Dukes of Hazzard there a dozen years ago. Some movies you got to see at a drive-in, and Guardians of the Galaxy is definitely one of them.
Now, is that the last drive-in in America?
You know what? There's not many left. There used to be when I was a kid. There was one out in Centerville, or going out to Centerville on Route 29 in Fairfax County, and that was a good 30 years ago that closed. And it's now near where there's a Home Depot out there now or something. But there's not many. Boy, they're really gone away.
They are now. Remember in the old days, if you went in the winter, they'd have the little heater.
Well, what I remember is you'd go into the one on Lee Highway, and you'd have a bunch of people under blankets in the back, like kids, and
right.
You'd say, "Oh yeah, there's only 2 of us, and that'd be 6 of you." Yeah, I guess the statute of limitations has passed on that.
Oh yeah, that's the old days. 8:17, Rapid Fire with Chap Petersen. Both he and I don't like the Oscars. Ratings were way down. I just couldn't understand why that movie won. I just thought, I thought it was 2.5 stars. But as you say, what do we know?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to, I know you're not into the Washington scene, but what do you think of this whole DHS funding amnesty thing?
You know what? I have to look at the Washington Post. I haven't been following it other than, it's just sort of the continuing dysfunction up in D.C. It seems like they've got this DHS. It's tied up with, the Obama immigration action. I know there's been federal court rulings on it. To be honest, John, I've been underwater with what's going on here in Richmond, so I can't honestly say I've got an opinion other than it seems like, as usual, Congress can't seem to get anything done.
Okay, let's go to Richmond. Senator Petersen, you've had a good session. You've had a lot of things that got traction. Give us an update.
Thank you. Well, I'm very pleased to say that our bill, which limits police surveillance, that has passed the House and Senate by big margins, 38-0 in the Senate, 95-4 in the House, and that's going to go into conference. The Senate version was broader and I think a little bit more pro-liberty. The House had narrowed it down a bit under some pressure from law enforcement groups. We're going to go into conference. I really want this to come out and be a strong piece of legislation that's going to be a model for the rest of the country. So that's number one. Number two, I got my homeowner Bill of Rights all the way through both bodies without a single no vote and without really any controversy, which amazed me. And I think for folks that do live in HOAs and condo associations, for the first time you're going to have really a set of rights that are clearly listed in the code with a remedy if people don't respect your rights. And it's all sorts of things like due process, right of notice, right to be represented, the right to serve on a board if you're elected, that I think people have been asking for. And it's an important piece of legislation. I don't know why, John. It seems like this year my ideas are sort of, I've had them before, but this year they have gotten traction.
Now, why is that?
Maybe I've just worn people down. Maybe sometimes when you first join a legislative body, you got a lot of ideas, and maybe you just haven't built up the credibility yet, and that's part of it. And in my case, the LPR, the license plate reader bill, was something that really I grabbed onto last session, and we spent a lot of time working on it, so we had some time to build support. And in terms of the homeowner bills, I got tired of voting for bills that have been brought by homeowner associations for more power, and I always said, why is it that nobody wants to stand up for homeowner memberships, HOA members? And so I think I tapped into something that people said, you know what, we always talk about, the power that the HOA board should have. What about the members? What about their rights? So, you know what, it was just dumb luck. I don't know why else, but I'm really proud to say I got what should be two really significant pieces of legislation.
I do have to compliment you. You were one of the founding members of the Ben Franklin Liberty Caucus, which is a very bipartisan caucus looking to protect liberties and freedoms of Virginians. And I thought you guys got, even though you didn't get everything passed this time, I thought you got more traction than basically any other conglomerate in there on some stuff. You know what?
Yes. I've only been around 1 year. Obviously we've got this LPR bill, the Liberty bill, really on the verge of being made law, and then we've had some other bills. I know we had the bill on asset forfeiture that got through the House and then got washed up in the Senate, but that'll be back. And the bill on limiting drones, public use of drones. We've gotten that. So we've got a lot of significant legislation, and like you said, we've got members on both sides. It's myself, Sam Razul, Scott Suravel on the Democratic side, and then we have a number of Republicans, Ben Klein, Rich Anderson, obviously. A lot of good people.
Look, no question, and I think the work that that caucus has done has been exemplary, and really what I call this trickle-down taking away of individual liberties and rights. I want to get to sexual assault on campuses. That's still pending. There's a couple of versions. How do you see that playing out?
Well, it kind of started with a firestorm at UVA, which obviously went in a different direction. And then we got down here and we had a number of, I'm going to say as many as 8 to 10 mandatory reporting bills for sexual assault, which would have required colleges and universities, when they got notice of such an assault, to turn it over to the prosecutors. And then that really got opposed very strongly by both colleges and universities and by the advocacy groups. They said, we don't want this. So what we've ended up with is, frankly, something that in a lot of ways mirrors existing policy, which is if we find out about an assault, we're going to form a committee and take it very seriously. So, I don't know what else to say, John, other than, I think a lot of people felt like we needed to take a stand on this, and we didn't. And maybe it's because federal law kind of prevents you from taking a stand, or maybe the people that you're supposedly trying to protect don't really want you to take the stand. But as for a combination of all those factors, I think the legislation that will eventually pass is not terribly meaningful.
I agree. Well said.
I don't know how else to say it.
No, that is well said. I think you hit the nail on the head. Senator Petersen, why did you vote no on the Tebow bill?
I'm sorry, vote no on what bill?
On the Tebow bill.
It's a tough issue. I probably don't get a lot of sympathy from the audience. I do believe that if you want to play public school sports, you need to enroll in the public school. We make decisions in life, and we make a decision to put our kid in the public school system or take him out of the public school system, and that decisions have consequences, and that's one of the consequences. And I respect the fact that people pay taxes, and the kids just want to play sports, and maybe there's a way to find an accommodation. I've wrestled with this because I have friends that homeschool their kids, but at the end of the day, I do think that if you want to play on a high school sports team, you need to be enrolled at the high school in some form or fashion, and that's kind of where I come down on it. And it passed anyway. I don't know what the governor is going to do with it. The bill that did pass is essentially a local option, although it's confusing. It basically says the Virginia High School League has to come up with a policy that will allow local option. If it is a local option, some counties that have a high homeschooling percentage and are struggling with fielding teams, I'm sure will use that option. Fairfax County, very unlikely they would do that again because we already have high school sports programs that oversubscribe with kids. So again, if kids don't want to be in the school system, it's kind of hard to say, well, you don't want to come in here for classes. Why should you come in here to play sports?
So why not leave it up to the individual elected school board members to figure that out? I mean, why have
John,
it?
I would agree with you, but the legislation itself didn't exactly say that. What the legislation said was counties cannot do business with Virginia High School League unless they adopt a certain policy. And again, I'd like to see the Virginia High School League work out such a policy. They're not a government actor, however, and I didn't feel comfortable telling them what to do. And again, I have my own opinion on it, and it may well be in the minority, but that's where I am right now.
Well, I think the governor is going to veto it, and I don't believe that the Senate is going to muster 2/3 override. So,
and the one thing I'll say is, and I don't know if I've got any officials for Virginia High School League listening in, I do think the governor will veto this bill, and it'll come back, and there won't be votes to override. But eventually this is going to happen in some way or form, and I really think VHSL ought to sit down with the homeschooling community and those counties which are willing to allow homeschooled students to participate. And it's not all of them, but some of them, and figure out some type of solution here. Because I'd rather not have to deal with this every year. And again, it may make sense for some counties. In Fairfax County, probably not.
Mountain Valley Pipeline, Atlantic Coast Pipeline, natural gas, cheap source of energy, U.S. now #1 producer of that. The pipeline could very well bring manufacturing jobs to Southwest and Central Virginia, people that could tap into the pipeline, also the Hampton Roads area. Obviously, the extreme left-wing environmental wackos going bananas over it. They go bananas over anything except wind, I would imagine. Why not build these pipelines in Virginia?
All right, well, first of all, maybe I'm one of those extreme wackos, but I think you have certain ways you can build the pipeline, and I'm sure if the pipeline makes economic sense, it's going to be built. You still have to respect people's rights. You're going to be crossing people's property. You got to pay compensation for that. You're going to be coming onto people's land. You got to pay compensation for that. I think that all needs to be factored into the equation. I don't think anybody ought to get a free pass. And full disclosure, my law firm does a lot of this eminent domain work, and so We may well end up being in the mix on some of these cases, even out in Western Virginia. But I think that, to me, there's a property rights aspect to it. In terms of sort of the environmental versus natural gas, first of all, natural gas is, by and large, a clean-burning fuel. So I celebrate the fact that we have resources of natural gas, and absolutely we ought to use them. I think what the environmental community is saying, look, we got to have a mix of resources. Virginia is one of the few states on the East Coast that we don't have the type of renewable portfolio standard that other states do, where you have to have a mix of wind and solar. And I know we're kind of taking itty-bitty steps, and of course there was that amendment to the Dominion bill, which I voted against, which would require somewhat more solar. But I think that's a separate issue. To me, the pipeline issue is really about the pipelines are fine, but you got to compensate people if you're going to use their property.
Okay, so what you're saying is pipelines, good way to get the natural gas through Virginia, but obviously you're concerned about the eminent domain issues and fair compensation, right?
Right. That's
okay.
right.
Then we can agree on that.